Okay, well, hello everyone. My name is Lily Angel, and my topic for today is should pet birds have their wings clipped? And so that's a picture of my first bird. Her name was Lu Jo. And so, um, hold on, it's not sliding. Okay, there we go. Okay. So I'm sure you guys are wondering, what is it like to care for birds? Well, I would say that they're pretty easy to take care of. They're pretty similar to dogs and cats. They're very intelligent, so you can always teach them tricks. They do require a lot of attention though, so I would recommend exercising them like by playing with them or just giving them like a good diet, giving them enough water and a clean environment for them to be around. And so one of the most controversial topics for bird owners is wing clipping. So a lot of people have actually asked me if wing clipping is actually really similar to hair clipping. And I would say yes and no, only because feathers, they don't keep on growing. They grow up to a certain extent and then they fall off and then new ones replace the old ones. Whereas for hair, it just keeps on growing and you just cut hair. So um, my main topic would be if people should clip their wings. So the reason why people clip their wings is to ensure that they don't fly away and that it's easier for them to maintain them. So a lot of birds, when they don't have their wings clipped, they do tend to fly outside if you don't have them properly trained, they could fly away outside and they could actually be like harmed by the environment that since they're not used to it. And another thing is that they can fly into and get hurt in indoors places. Like they can fly up to ceiling fans. They can fly and like fall into behind the stove. That has actually happened to one of my birds, and I had to move the whole oven just to get him out. So I do recommend. So I do see why people would clip their birds' wings, and but not everyone actually clips their wings. And I actually stopped clipping my birds' wings after I realized that they can actually get depressed, and it can actually cause psychological damage. So um, the next question is it moral? And I personally now see that it's not really too moral to actually cut their wings because it takes away their freedom and it's actually their natural body movement. It's how they move from place to place. So it's like if you're taking that away from them. And like I said earlier, they can actually get depressed and they don't exercise as much, so they can actually get overweight. And another thing is that people sometimes don't know how to properly trim bird wings. So um, I put some pictures here and I circled the areas. So the picture on the right is my bird. His name is Josie. And those black feathers in that area, those show that like where you're supposed to cut it. So you're only supposed to cut the black feathers. And you have to be really careful not to trim the bone, as you guys can see like on the left picture, because a lot of owners, if they're not careful, they can actually cut that part off and it can actually really harm the bird and actually make them incapable of flying or have them like get traumatized. So I would say it's not really moral for people to cut bird wings. And so leaving it on that note, I do recommend finding alternative methods. So if you do want to have your bird go outside, I would recommend getting a bird harness. So as you can see, this bird has its own harness. And so you can also train them to be more careful, so for them to not fly in certain areas. I've actually known a teacher and he had birds and he trained them to not fly in certain rooms of his house. So it's definitely a possibility for you to train your pets to stay off limits of dangers in both indoors and outdoors. And trimming isn't for every bird. Some birds, they'll be okay with it, but other birds, they can actually get really traumatized. So I do recommend avoiding trimming if you can. And yeah, like just make sure that if you do want to not trim them and you don't know how to train them, just keep an eye on them. So that's what I do. I've trained like 2 of my birds to not fly in rooms, but as for the other ones, I just tend to keep an eye out on them. So they don't get hurt or they get stuck in areas. And so I wanted to show you guys a few feathers that I have from my birds. So these are the black feathers that I was talking about earlier. And so you can see here that these ones are a lot different than like the green areas. And I don't know if you guys can see on this feather, but there's like this area right here is actually tinted green. And so that's how you know that this feather was actually from like closer to the area where you're not supposed to cut. So you just have to be really careful where you're gonna cut. But my opinion is to just avoid trimming like at all costs if you can. And so yeah, I hope that you guys can use this knowledge today if you guys ever decide to get a pet bird or know someone who has a pet bird. So here are my sources. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. You guys have any questions or comments?
I'm sorry, Becca.
You
Can we go, Becca?
can go, that's fine.
Okay, cool. I liked your presentation a lot. I really, this is a topic I'm learning more about because my friend has birds and she's really like, into like taking care of animals correctly. And so I really like that you included pictures of your own birds, makes you credible and also like, increases like pathos too. We're like, oh, that's a cute little bird. Let's not hurt it. And also the only critique I would have for you is since this is persuasive essay or not essay, persuasive speech, I would say be like a little bit more firm and assertive in your opinions and be like, don't clip their wings, it will seriously hurt them. So yeah, that's my only note is just to be a little bit more assertive on it. But otherwise, it's really good.
Thank you.
I just think you chose a really good topic. It's not something that I didn't know about, that it could like really affect their emotions. And it was really interesting and unique.
Okay, thank you so much. Any more questions or comments?
I also thought that this is just a pretty cool topic and one that I didn't know about. Because I guess I never really gave it much thought. What's stopping a bird from just flying away or getting hurt? Because I'd see like birds indoors and I don't see them fly. And I guess I always just thought, oh, maybe they're just trained. And I never really gave much thought as to why, So good job.
Your presentation was very good. I also really loved how you put the personal stories of your own bird and what you walked us through as you learned. And as far as the content, we used to have chickens outside, and if you don't clip their wings, they'll leave the yard. I didn't have a fenced in on top. We used to let them go around the whole yard, which we felt like was better for them to be able to be free ranged, but they don't know not to go leave the yard and be in danger. So a question for you, I think that the kids used to not trim them deeply, but a little bit, the wings, and they could fly low. They just couldn't get over the fence. Do I remember that correctly? Or do you know anything about that? They could still fly, but just not very.
Yeah, I definitely see that as like a possibility because my brother actually had chickens too. So I would definitely just recommend trimming them a little bit then. And if you still want them to like, how do you say it? Like not like fly, but like glide a little bit. But other than that, like if you see like the possibility to just avoid trimming like at all, then I would definitely take that route. But in your case scenario, I would definitely recommend just light trimming. So, okay, any more questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. So I'm gonna stop recording right now.